Hi, and welcome to the Two Idiots Talk About podcast. And today with me, I have my co-host Trent.
Tennessee can suck on our fish. Mississippi is jealous of our thick woods. And we have so many crawfish, Louisiana calls us crawdaddy. We're talking about Alabama's biodiversity.
Is that thick with two C's or a CK?
It's two C's. It's definitely, it's extra thick.
We have very rotund trees. Sumptuous, even.
I mean, no, actually, we have a lot of medium-sized trees, but
I mean, I don't judge.
we have a lot of different trees. It's a lot of different types of wood if you like your variety and that sort of thing.
So, if you somehow are watching this and haven't watched episode 1, or listened to episode 1, whatever you're doing, yesterday, last time we talked about skinwalkers, and we spun the wheel of what the heck we're going to do next. And we landed on Alabama's ecological diversity. If you can't tell, Trent put that one on the wheel. I know nothing about this subject, so...
And I very much stated that I only like fish and trees, so this is right up my wheelhouse.
Why just fish and trees?
I don't know, they're very two interesting topics. I like plants, I like fish. I'm not a real big fan of, like, mammals. I think, like, rodents and stuff are really boring.
I think I'm fascinated in Alabama's raccoon population.
Nah, that isn't where our biodiversity is. If you want biodiversity, you need to be out in the streams, wading through the waters, looking at all the fishes and the amphibians and the invertebrates.
What's your favorite fish, Trent?
My favorite fish?
Yeah.
Oh, that's easy. That's the black darter, Ethiostoma derii.
Look, you can't tell me what it is and not tell me why it's your favorite. Can it shoot lasers out of its eyes or something?
Nah, it's just a cool darter. It's very if either that or the greenside darter. The greenside darter is a pretty cool fish. It's kind of translucent a little bit, and it's also got like green stripes on it. I enjoy it. I like darters. Darters are a pretty cool fish. And if anyone don't know what it is, darters are sort of benthic fish that kind of look like they crawl on the seabed. They live in a lot of vegetation. Real cool fish.
So, I guess my first question is, what makes Alabama so diverse as opposed to so many of the other states? Like the ones you mentioned, like Tennessee. Why is it more diverse than Tennessee?
Well, Tennessee Tennessee, I have issues with Tennessee.
Okay,
Tennessee,
I do live there.
yeah, and you live in a fake state. Tennessee's fake. It piggybacks off the biodiversity of Alabama. They should feel ashamed.
I was really scared that you were going to say that Tennessee was a liberal myth.
No, they're not a myth. They are liars. They are liars.
Are you calling the whole state of Tennessee, an entity as itself, a liar?
Yes, they lie about their biodiversity. They piggyback on Alabama's success.
I mean, so as a prior Alabama native, and like and as someone who doesn't know a lot about natural biodiversity, I mean, I can admit that Alabama is probably one of the prettier states I've ever been to.
This has nothing to do with prettiness. This has nothing to do with prettiness. This has strictly to do with what we have and what different type of biological species. In Tennessee, here I'm going to explain my problem with Tennessee. So Tennessee is on the threshold of the Alabama watershed, so Alabama is split into two major watersheds. You got the Mobile River Basin, beautiful, considered the Alabama's Amazon. If you want to know more about it, we'll probably talk about it later. But you can also go to critterfacts.com, look up my name, read my article. Yes, that is an absolute just plug of my own work. Go read it. It's fantastic. I've heard that the guy's really sexy, the guy who wrote the article. You should hit him up.
This is already so sad.
Anyway, Tennessee shares the watershed with the North Alabama, which is usually the Tennessee River Basin. But the majority of the biodiversity is in Alabama, and the fish populations in the streams barely get into Tennessee. But because a few of these rare fish are found only in a few creeks on the border, Tennessee claims them as their species, when we have more of them. And that ups y'all's biodiversity numbers in the terms of fish, and that irritates me.
So I guess we're at least slightly educational in a way, and we're not just this is just a hate rant towards Tennessee and the bordering.
You
states
started
of
this
Alabama.
conversation.
I mean, you're right. I guess you're right. What exactly is a like when you say watershed and basin? Like, what are you meaning by that?
So your question is sort of what is a watershed?
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on your definition, but if you're looking at the basic definition, it's pretty much the drainage of where they drain to the nearest massive water source. So the Mobile River Basin flows into the Gulf of Mexico. The Tennessee River drainage, I believe, flows into the Mississippi River, also sort of into the Gulf, but it dumps into a certain way. So it's pretty much all the river systems in an area that dumps into the sea at a common point.
So, like, whenever I was with little research I was able to do that, like, what I've seen that kind of one, it appears that Alabama is just at like a really good point on like what's a good way to put this? Like the way it's set up, it's kind of has its own dividing lines of like we have a coast, we have like wetlands, we have we're just we have a lot of different types of areas.
Yeah, and in order to kind of understand that, you have to go back to the literal formation of Alabama. Alabama's geology is what gave way to a lot of these unique ecosystems. So, I'm sure most people that listen to this are familiar with the Black Belt in Alabama. It's a place where plantations were placed because they were fertile soil and people would grow cotton there with horrible practices. But the reason that area is so fertile is because it used to be a coast. That in the Cretaceous period, that was a coastal plain, and as that water receded, the minerals that were left over from the oceanic debris made very fertile soil, and also grasslands formed there. And as grasslands started to die back, the dead vegetation further provided nutrients to that soil, allowing this area to be completely fertile. But if you think about that, what this allowed Alabama to be is essentially remnants of a massive coastal plain, but also have these rich forest areas, limestone outcrops, and this allowed different soils to occur. And with the different soils allowed different vegetation, and vegetation then leads to different animal species evolving different mechanisms and thus increasing speciation practices.
So another thing that I'm like, so if you've ever been to Alabama, you know that
I don't recommend it. I'm joking. I love Alabama. Actually,
again, like I said, it's a very beautiful state. Like
just don't wear a cross around your neck. That's probably your best bet.
So it's the same rules as like vampires.
Yeah,
and like just unholy things. Just wear a cross around your neck and you should be fine. It'll ward off all the bad things.
I mean,
So like, I mean, if you've ever been to Alabama, you have probably seen kudzu. I know I have.
kudzu. First of all, we are talking about Alabama's native biodiversity. I'm not letting this podcast get off track like the last one because of you.
I mean, that's kind of my job, isn't it? Gotta throw a couple curveballs every now and again.
No, this is native Alabama species, and Alabama has more native species than it is the fourth richest biodiverse state in the entire country, and the only reason we're not number one is because absurdly large states like New Mexico and California and Texas.
So, would you say we're the most diverse compared to size?
Yes. I would actually state that the only reason those other states have us beat is because they have so much more land mass, they're able to hold more species. But like, if you did a biological survey of just like 100 square feet, I think you would find more species in Alabama than you would anywhere else.
So, you say diversity, and like, what would you say? What's a good question? You know way too much about this subject.
Not really. I'm really dumb.
So I mean you're kind of you're almost you're kind of self-showing yourself, so you're almost an expert on this.
No. Don't lie to these people. Don't up my credentials. They are smart people. They can see through that ruse. I like fishing trees.
I mean, I think our little stick figure profile image kind of sells that to them. I don't think they're going to believe a thing we say.
That's fair.
I mean, I could tell them that the great Alabama swamp alligator is like one of the most deadliest animals in the world, and I don't know, they're not going to believe me.
Well, here's a little fun fact for y'all. Alligators were introduced to Alabama to control the muskrat populations.
That's not true. How someone looked at an alligator and said, "Yeah, I need some of them."
Yeah, yes. Alligators were brought into Alabama's waterways and ponds to get rid of muskrats, which do a lot of damage. And originally, they were only supposed to be bringing in female alligators so that they could not reproduce but could feed on the muskrat populations. Well, apparently, people were not checking the genitalia of alligators thoroughly enough.
I was really hoping this was going to be a Jurassic Park scenario where life found a way. You know?
No, it's just people did not do the proper physical exam on alligators.
So when did this happen? Like I feel like alligators are just like when I think of Alabama, I think of, like in like our swamplands and stuff like that. I think of like alligators and crocodiles.
We don't have crocodiles.
See,
we don't have crocodiles in North America.
I knew that. So what? I guess since like this is kind of a very broad topic, I mean, I guess we just kind of start by narrowing it down.
Well, I mean, you can automatically state right here that Alabama has nearly 5,000 documented species, making us the fourth biologically most diverse state in the nation. We're almost number 3. We're coming close to number 3, and I believe that as more scientists get their foot on the ground and are starting to document more species in Alabama, we will become number 3.
So I guess this is kind of a big thing because almost every single species I've listed, like of the 2 that I've listed, like were non-native. What are I guess this is an interesting question for a lot of people. What are like some other interesting species that are non-native to Alabama?
Non-native?
Yeah.
And privet. I don't really like privet. Privet's a horrible plant.
What is privet?
Oh, it's a bushy-like thing that's very opportunistic. It just completely take over Alabama's woodlands. Completely devastates them too, because it blocks out any growth. So a lot of our native trees take time to establish themselves, and since privet grows so fast, it blocks them from getting any light, and it just suffocates our forests. And that's a lot of the reason, like when they chop down trees, they never get back to what their biodiversity was, because these opportunistic invasives take over before the natives can come back.
I mean, I think that's but I think that's an interesting topic to talk about in general, about like the way we handle things like the collection of lumber and stuff like that, and like how that affects I guess specifically for someone like where we have like a lot of invasive species, because I feel like Alabama just is rife with them.
Yeah, I mean it is, but talking about the invasive species, I do not think is productive to Alabama's overall diversity, because Alabama has the most endemic species in the entire United States, meaning that there are species in this state that are only found here, nowhere else in the world. They're only found in Alabama.
And I think that's kind of an interesting thing in general, because I mean I probably know a lot more about how things came to be. They were like evolution and like how. Like,
oh, by the way, earlier I said like over 5,000 species. That was just in regard to plants. Nowhere near the amount of actual species of organisms.
So not like including like insects and stuff like that.
Oh
So-
God, no.
So I have a feeling you know most about trees and fish. And we're kind of going to get on to a topic.
Why do you assume that? Has someone told you that I like trees and fish?
Who told
Who's
you?
lying to you?
Who told
Who's
you?
told you? Who's told you? Are you a skinwalker?
Gotta shake me to find out. But we're going to touch on a subject that I know you're going to want to talk about later, but I'm going to force you to talk about it now. Why are you a hater on fish, and why do you think that fish aren't fish?
Wait, what?
You've always told me that fish aren't actually fish.
We are not getting off topic here. We're going to talk about Alabama's biodiversity.
I need them to know that you think this.
Fish are not real. That's my statement. I'm going to keep it at that in this podcast. We can do a different podcast addressing that issue at some point, but I'm not getting sidetracked into this argument. We are going to talk about Alabama's biodiversity.
Oh my goodness. Well, I guess you're going to lead up to the next topic then.
Anyway, we have over 6,000 species in Alabama. That's what I was trying to say earlier. That is including all organisms.
So our plant life makes up a majority portion of our biodiversity, I'm guessing.
I mean, plant life makes up the majority of biodiversity in every ecosystem. Without plants, there's not much.
I mean, I know a little bit about plants. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to sound like a big dumb idiot whenever it comes to talking about anything ecological, which is sad because I am fascinated by it, but I understand more about like the history of things than I do about what kind of fish lives in the Black Warrior River.
You should probably be more interested in that. There's a lot of cool fish.
Name your favorite fish in Black Warrior River.
In the Black Warrior River, I'm a big fan of catfish. I love a bullhead catfish.
I know they taste really good.
They are good. Probably shouldn't eat them. They got a lot of parasites. They are literally the raccoons of the ocean.
Hey, I resent that.
The creek, not
the ocean.
Yeah, the ocean.
I resent that. I love raccoons.
Raccoons are cool. But no, so yeah, but I like that you mentioned fish because a lot of our biodiversity does come from our aquatic ecosystems. We have the most diverse rivers. We have the most river systems in the entire United States. We have more individual river systems than the entire United States.
I think that's kind of fascinating to me is that, I mean, like the fact that Alabama is kind of just all happenstance, really, you know? Like, the borders of Alabama are made up. Like, what makes up Alabama, people made up. And I find it interesting that it is kind of just all happenstance that this little slice of land that was kind of cut off by us from the rest of it just so happened to be so unique in its own way, you know?
It is a very unique state that people do not give credit for, and it's kind of sad too, because Alabama should honestly be the bastion of ecological diversity. So you hear the statistic all the time that species die every day. Like there's a new species going extinct every day. 56%, I believe the statistic is, of all of the species that go extinct in the United States occur in the Mobile River Basin.
And like, so what exactly is causing that, really? I have a few guesses, but
I mean, if your guesses was aliens, you'd be wrong. That would be a really wrong assumption. If it was skinwalkers, you'd be closer, but still wrong.
I'd be close. I mean, there's a lot of theories.
If it was dolphins being dicks to other fish, it's wrong. But I like where you're going with it. It's people. It's people. As people are starting to expand, we have more agricultural runoff going into streams, and nitrogen and phosphorus siltation in our streams are absolutely devastating populations. And it's not even like the big pretty organisms that are going extinct in Alabama. It's mostly mussels, freshwater snails, and these invertebrates. that most people have never seen in their life, but actually play the most crucial roles in our ecosystems.
So I guess this is kind of a very broad. Like, this is a broad question, and it kind of applies to a lot of different things. But like, if it was up to you, how would you go about handling this? Like, if you like to stop this, almost. I don't want to say mass extinction because I mean it's not in mass, but
It is. We are undergoing right now the greatest extinction event in the last probably hundreds of thousands of years.
From what I know about extinction events, though, some of those were pretty big. If I remember right,
at the rate we are losing species, we are in what should be classified as an extinction event period.
But I guess it goes back into my question: what would you do about it?
I mean, the best thing you can do is bring awareness. Alabama's biggest problem is we do not have the conservation efforts we need. The federal government gives funds to protect biodiverse states by pretty much what states lobby them for those funds. Alabama, even though we have close to 1/3 of the United States biodiversity in just this one state, only gets 1% of the funds to conserve its ecosystems that is in the federal budget. Just 1%. And I don't even think it's the full 1%. I think it's like 0.8%, something like that. And that is outrageous. It should be located depending on where this diversity is. And if that was the case, Alabama should be getting a larger sum of that conservation money, but we don't do it because we do not have politicians stepping up and actively fighting for our ecosystems.
You heard it here, folks. Just bang on your politicians' doors. Tell them we got to save these fishing trees.
You go to Tommy Tuberville's house. You bring him a darter. You say, "Look at this thing. Save it." Go to Washington. You go to Meemaw Ivy's house. You bring her a freshwater mussel, and you look at this thing and tell me it's not cute. Put googly eyes on it if you need to, but you get the point across.
I mean, I think that's kind of a big problem, and this is talking about diversity in general, is that like our planet is kind of not in the greatest health right now, comparatively, like. And it is our fault, like as an entire race. I mean, we've probably been one of the most harmful things to just living things to ever walk this planet. And like I don't think there is enough talk about like conservation efforts and protecting those kind of things. I mean, you hear like I mean a lot of people like I don't know who sees these things. I mean, but I know like anytime I'm like looking around the internet, like I feel like it's almost just an expected thing now to see like this new species added to the endangered list, near threatened list, or even extinct list. Like it's rampant at this point, and I wish there was more I could personally do. But I don't really know, like, unless I like just started just swimming around in random rivers in Alabama, just trying to.
Don't try to take my job.
Are you saying you swim around in rivers and you're just like?
I spend the majority of my time in rivers.
Day to day, how much time? Like of a day. Let's break down a Trent's day.
Like a week? Like
yeah,
I think it's better to do like a week.
How much time do you spend in rivers?
When I'm in school doing full research, I would probably say I'm in rivers about 12 to 14 hours a week.
That's not a full-time job, but like that's a part-time job.
Well, that's just in rivers. Like I also go to school, so I mean, like I can't be in rivers all the time. They frown upon bringing our books to the river.
I have to ask this, Trent. I mean, you spend a lot of time in wilderness. I've known you for a while. Are you a skinwalker? You turn into
coyotes? No, not that I'm aware of. I could check. We've probably talked about more skinwalkers, by the way, in this episode more than we did the last one.
That's fair.
But no. The best thing you can do, and the best thing that I can tell people who ask time and time again that didn't know this about Alabama, because many people are surprised. When you think of Alabama's history, you think of, and sadly, the KKK, you think of racism, you think of segregation, you think of old George Wallace, uh, you think of just horrible things in our history that the state should be held accountable for. But that is not what when I talk about people about this state, I have pride in it because I want people to know that Alabama should be the bastion of conservation.
I mean, like,
That its people are some of the, honestly, in my opinion, are some of the most naturally concerned people I have ever met because they care about it. This is their backyard. This is the stuff they grew up learning about. They know what's here and they want to protect it, but they don't know how special it is.
and I think I kind of agree with that, and it is kind of like shocking to me. Like, you really think about it, like a large population of Alabama has a fairly close relationship with nature.
Well, even if you were a complete did not give a crap about nature, but if you like hunting, this matters to you. You need lush forest. You need waterways. You need a thriving deer population. If that's what you enjoy for your sport, you need that biodiversity. Because this is all interconnected. If you eliminated one species, okay, maybe the whole ecosystem won't collapse. But if you eliminate another and another and another, just by sheer negligence, not by purposely trying to eliminate the species, but just by not caring whether it survives or not, at what point does the ecosystem collapse? And then at what point do you try to do something? And I believe we should start acting before the ecosystem collapses, not when it does.
And I think, like, I'm very big that, like, most of the problems in the world are caused by ignorance.
That is Alabama's biggest issue right now, is that people do not know actually how diverse this state is. We are one of the most understudied states when it comes to this.
And, like,
And
I feel like
just
that's something we need to talk about in schools a lot. Like, it's not something, and I think that goes for every state and most anywhere. Like not just in, like, the United States, but anywhere. That, like, this is a subject that, like, I personally never really had a lot of experience with. Like,
how we stop our environmental issues today, how we stop climate change, how we stop the extinction events is not at the federal level. It's not at the world level. Those policies are important, but how it stops is communities coming together and saying that we want to keep our backyards clean. We want to make sure that these species are protected. It is at the local level that the real change is going to occur.
and I have to heavily agree with that. And I mean, like, that's for really anything. That, like, you're the biggest change doesn't come from the people at the very top a lot of the time. It's
Well, in the terms of this biodiversity, since Alabama has such endemic species, so I'm going to use the turkey darter, the vermilion darter that's found in Turkey Creek in Jefferson County. It's found in a very remote creek. It's only found there. If this darter species went extinct, honestly, I could not sit here and tell you that an entire ecosystem would collapse if this darter went extinct. The whole state of Alabama wouldn't fall into natural disaster.
but I don't think that's really.
But
I agree that's not the problem.
But to the people that grew up on that creek, to the people that had that species in their backyard, to the people in that community, those are the people that need to be acting to protect that species. Those are the people that care the most. Those are the people it's going to affect. And that's what I mean by this. That it matters because since we have such species that are only found in limited ranges, what matters is if you live in those areas to take a stance to protect these species. I mean, Alabama, just in plants alone, we have 28 endemic plant species found nowhere else in the world. Bastions of just evolutionary design to the uniqueness of their environment that if they went extinct here, they would be gone forever.
it really just upsets me a lot, to think about things like that. Because
Try working in the field.
and I mean, like, I feel like that's something that everyone should be upset about. But it's not really, like, my day-to-day conversations never involve like the protection of these things, but I feel like it should be more of like just a thing that people talk about. Like I mean, we talk about climate change in general, but like it's a deeper problem than that, and it's a broader problem than that. It's not just, I mean, human interference has caused, as like I said before, has caused way too many problems.
The issue necessary with Alabama's biodiversity isn't necessarily human interference. It's human neglect. It's
the way we don't care.
No, it's not even that they don't care, because I don't believe this pretense that because we're in the South, very conservative, very Republican, that people don't care about the environment. I do not believe that in the slightest. They don't know. They don't know the true beauty that's in their backyard. I mean, Alabama has one of the biggest Solon-Dixon bog, one of the biggest pitcher plant preserves in the entire nation. 4 endemic pitcher plant species that are there that are only found in Alabama. Carnivorous plants that you think are in South America, are in your backyard. And people don't know about it, and most people don't care.
Makes you feel better, Trent. I care. I don't care about you, but I do care about these plants.
You live in Tennessee, so I don't care about you.
I'm from Alabama, though, and I mean, like,
you betrayed the state.
God, we're just reverting back to olden times, ain't we? But no, I mean, like, I don't even think that, like, as someone who doesn't even live there anymore, and like these things wouldn't even, like, if these aren't in my backyard, like, not anymore at least. Like, I played in those rivers. I played in the Black Warrior River whenever I was a kid. But
the rivers are the thing we need to be protecting. These are the backbones of our ecosystems. Our river system, we have some of the most aquatic diversity in the entire nation. We may not be winning in overall diversity, but aquatic diversity is off the charts. I introduced this episode saying that Louisiana, we have so many crawfish that you calls us crawl daddy. Louisiana's known for their crawfish bowls. You go down to Louisiana, you get gumbo and stuff. We have double the amount of crawfish they have of species. 67 crawfish species are found 97 crawfish species are found in this state.
I think people don't, and it's something that, like, kind of resonates with me, that, like, a lot of human civilization is based around, like, the way we grew and, like, built our civilizations was based around rivers. Like, I mean, you can take, like, a look at, like, how, like, settlements popped up and, like, where we settled and stuff like that. And though rivers are kind of tied to us as a people. And I think, like, they serve a big part in our history. And, like, you could probably go back in the history books, and if you were to, like, just look at, like, how we came to be, like, even just for Alabama, like, whenever it was settled and, like, homes were being built, like, how, like, the rivers shaped that. And
that is a part of the issue. We see rivers as a resource, not the backbones that they are. We see them as something we can continuously use for our own purposes, disregarding the detriment to the organisms that are living there. And first of all, I do not want to say that I put, like, the existence of one singular fish species that may be found in one creek over the benefit of humanity. But what I'm saying is that we need to at least consider these things. We need to consider how, when we use these resources, how many species are going extinct because of it. Because eventually we will get to that tipping point where these ecosystems cannot regulate themselves and they collapse. And then there will be nothing we can do. And there will be a time where we can say that Alabama's Amazon, which is what the Mobile River Basin is called, it's called Alabama's Amazon. was once the most biodiverse place in the nation. Currently it is, but we may have to say that it once was if we continue on the path we are now.
So I guess we've talked. I mean, we can also kind of probably even move to a lighter note now.
Yeah, let's move to a lighter note.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about
cool things in Alabama.
Yeah. So we told you what you need to do, what really how, a lot of negative things, but I think a big thing to kind of put it home is that you could probably touch on just sell it to me, what exactly is so beautiful and amazing about these ecosystems and our ecological diversity in general.
There are places in Alabama you can go and find prehistoric trees that are found nowhere else. So there's a relic population in Bankhead National Forest. You can go on a hike there, and in the ravines you can find hemlocks, eastern hemlock trees. These are remnants from when the glaciers of the Ice Age were down this far on the North American continent. They are found nowhere else because the environment does not suit them in these warmer, moist environments. But in these ravines where they stay cold, you can go there and you can get a glimpse of what the habitats in this area was during the Ice Age. You can see the world through the eyes of Sid the Sloth in those movies.
Are you saying Sid the Sloth is an Alabama native?
I'm not saying.
Just Sid the Sloth.
I'm not saying that Scrap the Squirrel was from Alabama or Sid the Squirrel was from Alabama, but oaks produce acorns, and Alabama have more oak trees than any other state. Point proven.
You heard it here, folks. Sid the Sloth. Scratch the whatever the world he is.
Scrap the Squirrel. # Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Oh my goodness. Okay. So listen here, folks. You heard it here. You got to protect the history of this place, the history of the things that Sid the Sloth and Scrat the Squirrel, Scrat.
Wait, wasn't that what the Ice Age movies were? A documentary on how to protect Alabama's biodiversity?
I think that's what we're kind of learning here today. And what you kind of enlightened me.
Those were documentaries.
Those were documentaries. A mammoth, and I mean, we're not going to go into the fact that not a lot of this makes sense because the timelines I don't think exactly match up. But hey, who knows? Who knows? The scientists could have gotten it wrong. This. No. Okay. But you heard it here, folks. Ice Age, the movies, all of them are minor history lessons and just kind of stories in general about how we need to protect the biological diversity of Alabama. I mean, Scrap the squirrel. I mean, he was doing hard work. He was planting. He was doing his job to protect. Sure, he was looking for acorns, but he also buried those acorns, preserving them,
It's not about the nut. It's about the journey.
It's not about the nut. It's about that's going in the quotes.
But that's just one example. Another example, a beautiful place to visit, the Cahaba River. So there's populations throughout the South, but we have the largest population of the Cahaba River lily. Beautiful flower that blooms from what comes first? Is it Mother's Day before Father's Day? Come on, co-host. I need your opinion.
Hey Siri. What comes first, Mother's Day or Father's Day?
Here's what I found.
What the heck?
I'm gonna say Mother's Day was first.
I'm thinking so.
Anyway, they bloom from Mother's Day to Father's Day is the old adage. Absolute beautiful lily. found very few places. In the Cahaba River, which is one of the most pristine rivers and one of the most biodiverse rivers when it comes to fishes in the state. And it's unique in its pollination habits. You can see these beautiful flowers in bloom, but you could also know that with this flower, it is only pollinated by a specific species of moth, the plebeian sphinx moth. And that is an interesting thing, in my opinion, of symbiosis that you can learn about. And if you just like flowers, it's just a beautiful flower, in my opinion. But if that doesn't tickle your fancy, go to the Bibb County Glades. The Bibb County Glades has the 7 new species of plants were found in the Bibb County Glades in this century. That was unheard of in botany. We thought we had found almost every species we could know. But we found 7 new plants right here because they have this special type of almost all plants, but these plants evolved to live in those harsh environments and are now, you can go there and you can point at that and see them all over the place and say, hey, that's found nowhere else in the world. That's found here. That is a unique species that you are witnessing. My favorite of which is Spigelia alabamensis.
I think one of the things, like, I guess kind of to paint a picture, like, if you've never been to, somehow you're listening to, you've never been to Alabama, you can kind of paint a picture here, like, it genuinely is just one of the most beautiful states. Like, my childhood, I have so many wonderful memories of just walking around in nature.
Well, you went to Tennessee, so you kind of threw your childhood under the bus.
That's fair. He deserves to be under there.
Hashtag unroll his tide.
Unroll his tide. But, like, I memories of, like, during, like, the spring and summer, just walking around with my friends and the smell of honeysuckle and hearing the songbirds sing. Or just a quiet summer night that is punctuated by the sound of... There's a place near where I live called Frog Acres, and if you're near it in night, you'll know why it's called Frog Acres, as you hear... Probably what has to be
you hear a lot and
thousands of frogs.
Of salamanders. Yeah, frogs.
Got it, nailed it. Just echoing out through the night, or like catching fireflies on a late night. Like, these are things, like, this is one of the few places that, like, you can, like, the air, like, people always say, like, the air smells sweet. Like, genuinely, you can, on a nice, like a nice day in Alabama, you can take a walk and you're just surrounded by all these different beautiful, like, different, like, types of plant and, like, animal that you, like day to day, like, whenever I was growing up, you just would see natural species constantly. You can be it was just an expected thing. You're driving down the road, you're going to see, like, a herd of deer passing by, fox playing in the night, like, the lone opossum just being a freak in the night, raccoons digging in the garbage. It's beautiful.
I'm real glad you didn't mention the O in possum this time.
I did say opossum.
I think no, I'm going to take it as you're learning.
I'm pretty sure that our opossums, it's opossums here.
We're not getting into this.
Marsupial. No, okay, I need you to learn this, Trent. Opossums or opossums and possums are 2 separate species. They're 2 different things.
So anyway, Alabama has 57% of the turtle species found in all of North America.
Tell me about turtles, Trent.
57. We have 57% of the turtle species. We have 27 kinds of freshwater turtles.
Okay, mister, I don't want to learn about opossums.
No, I don't. No, I told you fish and trees.
I think it's fish. You could even go further.
I don't.
The plural. I think the plural is fish.
I don't want to make it. I don't want to be an idiot.
You want to make it possessive? That's the fishies pond.
I don't want to be an idiot in this podcast anymore.
It's too bad. You're in the picture. It's a perfect likeness of you.
I'm the taller one, by the way. But yeah, we have 57% of the turtle populations. And I think people take that for granted that, you can go out and you see turtles crossing the road, you can see them in the rivers. People in other states don't have these experiences.
Yeah, I agree.
This is unique to Alabama. And you can go to some places and see I know people don't get hard for rocks. Pun. But you can go to certain canyons in Alabama and see the different geological layers from sandstone to limestone to more sandstone to shale. And what this shows is the different prehistoric regions that has built Alabama's different geology. There are places down near Livingston, the University of West Alabama, where you can literally see chalk outcrops on the side of the road peeking out of the grass, and you can go look and find aquatic fossils on the side of the road. So we've been diverse since species have been on this planet. The matter is, can we keep it now?
And to go back into the heavier subject, again, I think it's a discussion about education, and I would love if something like we had classes about this, like an entire class, and this is for not just Alabama again, about ecological conservation and the history of our ecology and just the diversity of where you live, and the steps people need to take to handle these things, because I don't think this is something that just people who are studying it need to know. It's something that at least on some level, if you're a person and you live somewhere, so pretty much everybody, but you need to know these things, at least on some level, and have knowledge about these things and why they're important.
Or you could just be completely ignorant and just let me rant to the internet. You would make me very sad. You'd make me cry. If you took this plea, and this is why I was excited about this podcast, because I could have I have told y'all about a lot of Alabama's biodiversity, but this is a plea to just care a little bit. Just care a little bit. Care about our home. Care about the species that are here. Just care. I don't think that's too hard to ask.
I think it's pretty hard for me to ask. I don't care about a lot of things.
Well, I'm asking you to care about this for the possum's sake. For the possum.
And I don't think we have possums here.
Alabama has possums.
We have opossums.
Anyway, we have 22% of the crawfish species in the world.
God,
I'm going to keep changing the subject because I don't want to talk about that.
They live here. You should know this.
No, I don't. Fish and trees, Hitchcock. Fish and trees.
Are crawfish even... They're not fish.
No, they're not, but they're in the water.
They're in the water. They live there.
They live there. I like mussels, too. Mussels are cool. We're number one in mussel diversity, and in fact, we're also number one in mussel extinction, though.
So it kind of comes hand in hand, you know. We're really good at making them, but we're also really good at...
Well, Alabama's really good at having these species. We're also really good at letting them kick the bucket.
You know, it balances out in the end, you know.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. No,
so do nothing. It'll sort itself out.
But before we wrap this up, I want to read a quote that I think is important. That I want to leave people here before we spin the wheel. This is by Scott Duncan. He wrote one of my favorite books called Southern Wonders, Alabama's Surprising Biodiversity. Give it a read. It's fantastic. It'll go into a lot more detail of why it is such a biodiverse state. But this is what he said on why we should care. Seen or unseen, Alabama's thousands of native species play important roles in the ecosystems, sustaining the state's economy and culture. Impaired ecosystems offer us little, and when they collapse, there is a loss of livelihood, property, and sometimes life. Consider flooding in overdeveloped watersheds or the trauma in coastal communities with when fisheries collapse. When we lose biodiversity, we lose opportunity and ecological security. Ultimately, biodiversity protection is people protection. So if you do not care about a little endemic species, care at least about what would happen to your home. Because like I said, you never know when that one card you pull out of the house of cards you've built will collapse the whole thing. And we are at the point that any card pulled could collapse the whole thing.
Are opossums and possums two different
Why did
things?
you have to ruin the sad moment? I was trying to be like real majestic.
What is the difference? Possum versus opossum.
I don't know. I'm not a mammologist. I'm at best an ichthyologist or a
Why
dendrologist
they
or a
have
botanist.
similar names, possums and opossums are distinct animals.
I don't know. There's a.
People easily confuse possums and opossums.
I don't know. There's a type of shrubby bush called a possum holly,
Well, they're wrong.
and it's spelt with an O. So
Possums are native to Australia, New Zealand, and China, while opossums live in America and southern Canada. That was me dropping the mic.
why are you like this?
Gotta know. Look, you want to talk about biological diversity? You gotta talk about our opossums. Opossums are cute. I saw a video once of opossums eating a bunch of bananas. It's real cute.
We're not that biodiverse when it comes to mammals.
Look, I really like opossums, man. Why do you gotta take this from me?
Well, people should not care about possums. I'm not a possum hater. I'm not anti-possum.
I like how you like. I mean, we're not even talking about the same animal right now. You're talking about possums. They live in Australia, idiot.
Yes, and you live in Tennessee. I don't think you're qualified to be in this podcast about Alabama's biodiversity. Unroll your tide.
Take away his Roll Tide card. He can't say Roll Tide no more.
It's time to spin the wheel.
All right. Please
What is going to be this?
Please be Soda or World War II. Please be Soda or World War II. Please be Soda or World War II. Anticipation is killing me.
Well, next time, folks, we went from skinwalkers, Alabama's biodiversity, and next time we're going to be talking about Elon Musk.
Elon Musk! I forgot we put that one on there.
So, a lot of variety of topics. You don't know what you ever. You never know what you're going to get.
I'm going to point out this doesn't carry over audio. It's not Elon Musk. It's Elon Musk ?
This actually fits. He was named Person of the Year the other day. We could talk about.
We somehow have been very topical. Someone told me, like one of the people reviewers was talking to me. They said that you really hit that there was a big surge in social media about skinwalkers. It was really topical for y'all to talk about. I was like, what? I had nothing to do with that one.
I did. Now there's going to be a surge in Alabama's diversity. But anyway, we'll talk about Elon Musk next time. Just care a little bit. Care about your backyard.
This has been Trent and Jacob on the Two Idiots talk about opossums and possums are two different things. Look it up, people. Trent's wrong. You gotta care.
If you want to look into something more interesting, look at fish, trees. Make Scrat the squirrel real happy.
Next time we're talking about Elon Musk. Come back next time.